This is video L01, Steps for Developing Language Objectives. This video briefly presents a 5-step process for deciding which language to focus on in a lesson. How do we get language objectives? They don't just magically rain down from the sky, as nice as that would be, and they usually aren't provided in textbooks or curriculum plans. Rather, they are created by teachers based on lesson content and student needs. Although language objectives are individual to teachers and classrooms, depending on what students already know, what the goals are, and so on, there is a general process that teachers can follow to develop the useful and effective language objectives. Here are the 5 steps. First, determine the standard. Next, create content objectives from that standard. Third, determine which objectives require language. Fourth, decide what language the content objectives require. And fifth, decide which language is important to focus on. The rest of this video reviews these steps and provides brief examples. The first step is to determine the standard. In this example, from the Common Core standards, the focus is on students being able to find and use good resources well. To meet this standard, a teacher might think, "Oh, I can meet this standard in our unit on real-life heroes by having students choose and research someone and write a summary." So, for this standard, the content objectives might be something like these. Students will choose a real-life hero, they'll be able to find online resources, they'll be able to answer a brief survey, and they'll be able to write a 5-sentence summary. Step 3 is often the most difficult step for teachers who are not used to making language objectives, but it does become easier with practice. The idea is to think about the language, vocabulary, skills, strategies, grammar, and so on that students need in order to reach the content objectives. In this case, choosing a hero can be done by photo, so it doesn't really require much language. In addition, finding resources can be in the first language or by looking at pictures, so it also doesn't really require much language. However, content objectives that include answering and writing definitely include some language. What kind of language do students in this class need to answer and to write? In the first case, reading skills and practice with answer format will be necessary. For the second, students might need instruction on how to create sentences and paragraphs. Note that sometimes the teacher knows that students already have the needed language and don't need to focus on it specifically. In that case, a language objective isn't needed. At other times, some or all of the students will need to have the language reinforced, so there may be one or more language objectives. Step 5 is to decide which language to focus on. In this example, the teacher has had students take a variety of surveys already, so they know how to use and answer surveys. However, most of them have never written a full paragraph, and many do not know or use sentence format. The teacher decides to leave paragraph format for later and to focus on helping students write correctly formed sentences. With an understanding of the goal of having students be able to write sentences, the teacher can put the language objective in the correct format. Either way, shown in this slide, is fine, and there are many other possibilities for wording as long as the language objectives follow the guidelines for writing language objectives. For more information on creating the actual language objective, see video L02 and other resources. Here's another example. For this standard from the Common Core standards, students will understand properties of Earth objects. So the teacher could work toward the standards with these content objectives, sorting Earth objects by properties and comparing Earth objects. As noted previously, some content objectives need more than one language objective, and sometimes none are needed. In order to sort and compare, students need a variety of different kinds of language. For example, they might need vocabulary for size, color, and shape, and they might need to understand the use of comparatives. The teacher might decide that since all of her students know color, shape, and size words, she'll have them make and use comparative form of adjectives, something that they haven't had practice with before. She decides that this is the most important language for students to learn and practice for this lesson. So, her language objective will read, students will be able to form and use comparatives correctly to describe Earth objects. Remember, there could be more than one language objective for this content objective. For information on how to integrate and assess language objectives, see other videos in this series. Now, see how much you learned. Test yourself by taking the quiz on this page.